In 2016, Doom was reimagined for the modern era with the perfect blend between keeping the old stuff we loved and throwing in some fresh ideas. 4 years later, it was time for Doom Eternal, ready to take that new vision and push it even further. So, with the 2016's Doom successfully bringing the franchise into the modern era, the question now is, what makes a truly great sequel? A great follow-up can't just be a safe bet, it needs to evolve in every possible way. And I think this boils down to 3 key things. First, it has to improve and build upon the strengths of the previous game. Second, it must evolve the mechanics, even if it means stepping outside of the comfort zone. And finally, it has to fix or at the very least mitigate what didn't work. And Doom Eternal is a bold sequel that isn't afraid to break free from its predecessor's shadow. By pushing the mechanics to new limits, it creates a unique experience with both highs and lows along the way. So get ready, because we're going to take a look at what this game does right and what it does wrong, in my humble opinion. Keep in mind that this review will focus primarily on the single-player campaign, including the core mechanics and progression systems. Doom Eternal isn't messing around, it cranks up everything that made the previous game so great and dials it to 11. And while some sequels might act like all the upgrades you earned in the previous game never happened, Doom Eternal takes a middle ground. It ditches some stuff like weapon and armor upgrades, but all it takes is a couple of minutes to reunite you with the shotgun, the double jump and the chainsaw. Plus, you now get a flame belch, and setting enemies on fire refills your armor. This creates a very interesting combo with glory kills, the chainsaw and this flamethrower, letting you grab health, ammo and armor smoothly without breaking the flow of the game. The amount of ammo for weapons has been reduced though, and this makes the chainsaw, which now auto-refuels 1 charge of gasoline, even more important. You still need to hunt for gas for larger enemies, but the auto-refuel keeps you good to go for the smaller ones. There's also a brand new ice bomb to freeze enemies, which can be used in conjunction with the flamethrower to create a satisfying mix of ice and fire. Now, remember the rune challenges in the last game? Doom Eternal ditches them in favor of rune pedestals that can be found exploring the environment. These let you unlock new runes and equip up to 3 at a time, giving you more control over what kind of bonuses you want to use. You also find Predator tokens that offer suit upgrades like environmental resistance, reduced cooldown for grenades, and faster weapon switching. And finally, there's Sentinel crystals that unlock straightforward upgrades for health, armor, and ammo. However, if you're that type of player who likes to stick with one weapon for the entire game, well, I have some bad news for you. This time around, enemies have weak points, rewarding precision and making weapon choice crucial for extra damage. And you can think of it like this. The Arachnotron has a turret on its head that should be destroyed as quickly as possible, and the best way to do this is with the long-range scope of the rifle. The Doom Hunter has an energy shield, and the Plasma Rifle is your best bet to crack it, and the Cacodemon is instantly stunned when it swallows a grenade. It's a system that encourages strategic weapon switching, making you a much more efficient player. And this can even be combined with other weapons. For instance, remember the Ice Bomb? For the Pinky's weak point, an easy strategy is to freeze it first and then take care of it. And speaking of damage, instead of boring health bars, this game uses a great visual feedback by making pieces fly off as enemies are hit. So it's clear how much damage you're causing, even without numbers flying around showing it. However, this new focus on weak points might feel a bit by the book to some players, potentially reducing freedom of choice. While you can still use other weapons, it will definitely cost you more ammo and precious time, and those are 2 luxuries that you often don't have to spare in this game. The good news is that the system becomes second nature pretty quickly, especially with the longer campaign, and scanning the environment and planning your attack strategy, including weapon switching, becomes an integral part of the gameplay loop. And that's probably the biggest difference between this game and the previous one. Frequent weapon switching is key to mastery in Doom Eternal. Now let's talk about the real stars of the show, the Doomslayer's arsenal. The weapon selection here is pretty similar to the previous game, with 2 exceptions. Despite the excellent arsenal in the previous game, one weapon stood out from the rest, the pistol, and now that has been fixed right from the start. The starting weapon is now the shotgun, which serves more as a way to stun weaker enemies so you can perform a glory kill. And the Gauss cannon has been replaced by a ballista, which is capable of dealing a lot of damage but has a longer reload time and limited ammo, bringing a good dose of risk and reward to when it should be used. Weapons still have alternate fire modes, which can be unlocked with weapon points that you earn during the game, and my favorite update was to my favorite weapon, the Super Shotgun. It now has a grappling hook, which attaches to enemies and pulls you towards them so you can finish them off in a very satisfying way. And best of all, when you unlock this alternate fire mode to its maximum level, it will also set enemies on fire and you will be able to recover armor during it. The chain gun also has new options, with one that works as a shield and another that turns it into a turret that fires so fast it gets red hot. And unlocking this final upgrade for each weapon takes some extra effort, like racking up double kills with the plasma rifle or taking down 50 foes with the super shotgun's grappling hook. Overall, these tweaks elevate an already stellar arsenal, offering even more variety and room for experimentation, and in that way you can find the alternate fire modes that best suit your own play style. All of this contributes to a gameplay loop that is even more action-packed. You will need a lot of attention and strategy to identify enemies and decide which ones to focus on initially, paying attention to their weak points and obviously remembering to use the flame belch and the chainsaw. And what the game does to help with this last part is to leave some weaker enemies lurking around the map all the time, so you can use them to recover armor, ammo or health. The levels have a good dose of verticality, but with no space for cover, so movement continues to be a key factor in doing well in this game. And when it all works, the gameplay is fantastic, and few games can convey that sense of action and adrenaline like Doom Eternal. You feel super powerful, but at the same time there's a large number of enemies and a constant risk. One wrong move or a moment of hesitation and you might be starting over. In addition, the enemies will appear in waves during the combat and not all at once, which prevents you from being suffocated by a large number and gives you a little time to look out for weaker enemies lurking around and recover some health and ammo. I just think it takes too long to get to that right balance. The beginning of the game, with limited weapons and upgrades, can feel too difficult. You're often out of ammo and more vulnerable, and that can be quite frustrating, especially for newcomers. The one piece of advice I can give you is, stick with it. Once you unlock a few more weapons and upgrades, things smooth out considerably. Trust me, the wait is worth it. But now, it's time to talk about my biggest issue with this game. I wasn't a huge fan of the platforming stuff in Doom 2016, and well, guess what? Doom Eternal throws even more at you. You now have an entire arsenal of fancy moves: double jump, air dash recharges, monkey bars, and even wall climbing. But honestly, all these acrobatics just feel unnecessary in a first-person shooting game about blasting demons. Some of these platforming sections drag on way too long and demand an unnecessary level of precision for a shooter game. Frankly, they just break the flow of the action and easily become the most frustrating moments in the entire experience. You just clear the room full of demons, the adrenaline is pumping, you're feeling like a badass, and then you get stuck for 3 minutes because you missed the last dash in the third jump in a platform section. And yes, this is a Doom game. So yeah, the platforming sections in Doom Eternal are easily the most frustrating part of the game for me. They just break the flow of the action and take you away from the raw, adrenaline pumping experience that Doom is all about. Sure, you must have some cooldown moments, but there are other ways of doing it. Now let's shift gears and talk about the atmosphere. This time, we're on Earth, and humanity is being wiped out by the demons while the UAC remains suspiciously quiet about it. Unlike the previous game, mostly enclosed arenas, Doom Eternal opens things up with larger, more vertical spaces. Think crumbling buildings, abandoned cars, and a constant vista of the planet's devastation. The sheer scale of destruction really hits you, and the aesthetic here is seriously impressive. There are still secrets scattered around the maps, and now the collectibles will appear on your ship, the Fortress of Destruction, which serves as a kind of headquarters for you to take a break between missions, as well as serving as a museum to display the collectibles you found and offer upgrade options. Another big difference here is that this game has a lot more story going on, and yes, you heard that right, a Doom game with a narrative. The Slayer's mission here is quite clear: stop the demonic invasion of Earth by eliminating everyone in the way, particularly the Hell Priests. There are also flashbacks that unveil the Slayer's backstory, his relentless quest for revenge and redemption, and the journey that forged him into the unstoppable force that he is. But wait, there's more. It wouldn't be a Doom game without a trip to Mars, and there's even a brand new location. And familiar faces like Dr. Samuel Hayden and Vega also make a return. But despite the extra story elements and cutscenes, don't worry, the action remains the focus here. The cutscenes are concise, ensuring that the focus stays firmly on the fast-paced gameplay. And for the purists who dread the idea of a Doom game with a story, fear not. You have the option to skip all the cutscenes and dive straight into the action. Overall, the narrative serves two purposes: providing a clear direction for your objectives and delving deeper into the Slayer's backstory and motivations. And to wrap it up, the soundtrack remains absolutely killer. Mick Gordon once again delivers a phenomenal score that perfectly complements the energy of the game. However, some post-release drama surrounded the official soundtrack of the game, and this led to Mick Gordon parting ways with the DLC soundtrack, but that's a story for another video. Doom Eternal isn't just a sequel, it's a bold evolution. It takes everything that the 2016 game did well and push it to the next level. And remember those 3 key points for a great sequel? Doom Eternal checks all the boxes. The combat is smoother and more strategic, the world is bigger and more stunning, and the campaign is longer. This game isn't afraid to shake things up. You rely more on the chainsaw and the flame belch, and mastering weak points and resource management becomes crucial. And yes, there's a story that is more prominent than ever. Of course, no game is perfect and the platforming section could be less demanding, and some enemies like the Marauder and Doom Hunter might frustrate newer players. The reduced ammo and reliance on armor pickups might also feel like a step back for some fans of the previous game. But overall, Doom Eternal's changes are positive. They expand upon the already stellar gameplay, making the pace faster and requiring more precision and strategy. With its improved combat, killer soundtrack, stunning visuals, and surprisingly engaging story, Doom Eternal is an evolution. It builds upon the previous game's success while carving out its own unique identity. And that was my first review, so if you stuck around all the way to the end, thanks for watching and feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. You may also consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you again in the next video.